All right, so did you know 40% of Gen Xers either already have a small business or they plan to start one to help supplement their retirement? That came from Business Wire. And also in 2024, there was an amazing statistic. Over 5 million small businesses were started in 2023 by the Millenials and the Gen Zers. Pretty interesting stuff. So I wanted to come on here real quick and just give a little primer. I'm an attorney. This is not legal advice. This is only for education on just making sure that if you do start a small business, you do it in the right way, you do it in the right order. And the reason I say this is because I have seen recently where people have maybe started an LLC, but they didn't do all the things like an operating agreement together. Or I had a partnership not that long ago where one partner went and got an EIN, and then they filed the paperwork on the LLC a couple of days later. Not a big deal, but just kind of a legal thing that had to be worked out when one of the partners was leaving the business a few years later. So what you want to do first is make sure that you absolutely research what your requirements are, where you live. Maybe you need to get a business permit in your county. Maybe depending on what you're in, you need some kind of license or some kind of inspection to be able to either have people, in your space, or even if you're doing services online, there are some communities that require you to have a license to run a home-based business. So make sure you're doing that. Next thing is decide on your structure, sole proprietorship, LLC. A lot of these smaller businesses are being formed as an LLC. There are things called S-Corps. It's a tax election. So you would start as an LLC, and then once you hit certain revenue marks, go see your CPA, and there's tax benefits for filing as an S-Corp, after you hit a certain level, but you can't form an S-Corp. I've seen that sometimes. It's an LLC. It's what you're going to most likely form in your state. And then you're going to want to go to ein.gov, and you want to get your federal employer ID number. This is the number you're going to use on your bank accounts. This is the number that identifies you. If you end up taking employees and you have to get your workman's compensation and your unemployment and things like that, that's going to be the number that they're going to use most of the time. Some states may have their own numbers, but you're still going to have to register with those organizations with your EIN. Please, if you're doing an LLC, get your EIN after you form your LLC, because an LLC creates a completely separate legal entity from you, the human being. So even though humans do the work, the structure is such that it's a separate entity. And if you get your EIN in the wrong order, again, it'll be assigned to you personally and not to the business. I've seen that happen a few times. Obviously, though, great CPAs can work all that out. So, but, just something to think about there. And then finally, make sure that if you are selling something that you're required to charge sales taxes on, that you get any vendor's licenses, sales tax licenses, things like that, that you may need. Remember to open a separate account and deposit those sales tax amounts, because you have to pay them to the state. And you want to make sure that very specifically, you are not spending the state's tax money. So that's just a primer of how you kind of get up and get started. I'm amazed at all of the other small business owners in my generation and the ones behind me. It's really making a comeback. For some people, it's just a side hustle. For other people, though, they are retiring, I guess, my age, maybe a little older. They're retiring from their regular jobs and scaling up those side hustles to become other businesses that they're going to work until they retire. Take care.